The hospital corridor was empty. John Wayne stood facing a man nobody remembered. He placed his hand on the veteran's shoulder. And he made a promise. 1978, UCLA Medical Center. 3rd floor oncology wing. The fluorescent lights hummed at particular frequency hospitals have. Not quite silence, not quite sound. Just the weight of waiting. John Wayne was 71 years old. 6 feet 4 inches of American mythology walking on borrowed time. The cancer was winning. Everyone knew it. The doctors knew it. The press knew it. Wayne knew it. He was there for another round of tests. Another consultation. Another conversation about experimental treatments that probably wouldn't work. He'd been coming to this hospital for months now, walking these same corridors, nodding to the same nurses, sitting in the same waiting rooms. He wore his brown Stetson. Always the hat. Even here. Maybe especially here. A man holds on to what makes him recognizable when everything else is slipping away. That Tuesday afternoon in March, Wayne was walking back from radiology to the main oncology desk. The corridor was long, institutional beige, lined with doors leading to examination rooms and patient wards. Somewhere a television played. Somewhere someone was crying. The sounds hospitals make when they think nobody's listening. And then he saw him. An older man, maybe 50, maybe 60, hard to tell. Sitting on a bench against the wall. Alone. Wearing a faded field jacket. The kind that's been worn so long it's become a second skin. On the chest, barely visible, a small cluster of ribbons. Service medals? Vietnam. The man wasn't waiting for anyone. Wasn't reading. Wasn't doing anything. Just sitting. Staring at nothing. The particular stillness of someone who's been forgotten so long they've forgotten how to expect anything else. Wayne slowed his walk. Stopped. Turned. The veteran didn't notice at first. When he finally looked up and saw John Wayne standing 3 feet away, staring at him, his face did something complicated. Surprise. Disbelief. Then that automatic flattening that comes from years of disappointment, the look that says, "This isn't real, don't hope." Wayne didn't smile. Didn't do the Hollywood thing. He just looked at the man's chest. At those ribbons. At the evidence of service nobody else was seeing. Vietnam? Wayne's voice was rough. The cancer had gotten into his lungs. Every word cost something now. The veteran nodded slowly. Yes, sir, 68 to 70. Marines. Wayne was quiet for a moment. Then, what's your name, son? Frank. Frank Delaney. You here for treatment, Frank? No, sir. I work here. Janitorial. Night shift mostly. He gestured vaguely down the hall. Just came in early. Waiting for my shift. Wayne didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Wayne looked at Frank Delaney for a long moment. At the worn jacket. At the cheap shoes. At the hands that had held a rifle in a jungle 10 years ago, and now held a mop in a hospital corridor. At the face that showed what happens to men when their country stops seeing them. Something shifted in Wayne's expression. Anyone who'd worked with him on a film set would have recognized it. The moment when he stopped performing and became still. The moment before a decision. You got a minute, Frank? Ah, yes, sir. Of course. Wayne gestured to the bench. Sit with me. They sat. 2 men on a hospital bench. The corridor stretched empty in both directions. The fluorescent lights hummed. Somewhere a cart rolled past on squeaking wheels. Wayne pulled off his hat. Set it on the bench between them. Without it, he looked older. Sicker. More human. I never served, Wayne said. It wasn't an apology. Just a fact. But the weight in his voice suggested it was a fact that had gotten heavier over the years. Frank looked confused. Sir, you made all those war movies. The Sands of Iwo Jima, the Green Berets. Movies, Wayne interrupted gently. I made movies about men like you. But I never was one of you. He was quiet for a moment. World War II, I was 34. Had 4 kids. Studio kept me back from Morale Pictures. Korea came, I was too old. Vietnam. He gestured at his chest, at the disease eating through him. I wanted to go over. Make the Green Berets. Show people what you boys were doing. But being there for 2 weeks making a picture, that's not the same as being there for 2 years carrying a rifle. Frank didn't say anything. What do you say when John Wayne is confessing to you in a hospital corridor? I see him sometimes. Wayne continued. Men like you. At premieres. At airports. Wearing the jacket. Wearing the evidence. And I see how people look through you. Like you're not there anymore. Like you were useful once and now you're just... He stopped. Started again. It's not right. It's okay, Mr. Wayne. People got their own lives. It's not okay, Wayne said, and there was steel in his voice now. Not anger. Just certainty. A man serves his country, comes home, he's owed something. Not charity. Not pity. Recognition. Respect. The acknowledgement that what he did mattered. Frank's eyes were wet now. He looked down at his hands. Wayne reached into his coat pocket. Pulled out a business card. Looked at it for a moment, then put it back. That wasn't right. Instead, he reached up to his own chest and unpinned something from his lapel, a small American flag pin. The kind you could buy in any drugstore. Nothing fancy. But he'd been wearing it. He held it out to Frank. I want you to have this. Mr. Wayne, I can't. You can. Wayne's voice was quiet but absolute. And I want you to do something for me. I want you to wear this pin. Every day. And whenever someone asks you about it, and someone will ask, I want you to tell them Frank Delaney served his country in Vietnam. I want you to say it out loud. You hear me? Out loud. Frank took the pin with shaking hands. Stared at it. A cheap little flag pin worth maybe $1. But John Wayne had worn it. And John Wayne was giving it to him. I'm dying, Frank, Wayne said matter-of-factly. I got maybe 6 months, maybe a year if I'm lucky. And I'm making promises I can keep in the time I got left. So here's mine to you. Every time someone asks me about the war movies, about playing soldiers, I'm going to tell them about you. About Frank Delaney. About the real men who did what I only pretended to do. That's my promise. You keep yours. Deal? Frank couldn't speak. Just nodded. Wayne stood up. Put his hat back on. Looked down at the veteran still sitting on the bench. Thank you for your service, Frank. It mattered. You matter. He held out his hand. Frank Delaney stood up and shook John Wayne's hand. The grip was firm. It lasted maybe 3 seconds. But it was the first time in 10 years anyone had looked him in the eye and seen him. Wayne turned and walked down the corridor. Didn't look back. That wasn't his way. Frank sat back down on the bench, clutching the pin, and cried. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. What happened next took 6 months. John Wayne went back to his treatments. Back to the tests. Back to fighting the thing that was killing him. But he kept his promise. In interviews, and there were dozens in those last months, everyone wanting to talk to the dying legend, Wayne started telling a story. About a veteran named Frank Delaney. About meeting him in a hospital corridor. About real service versus Hollywood pretend. I played soldiers, Wayne would say. Frank Delaney was one. There's a difference. At first, journalists thought it was a one-time anecdote. But Wayne kept bringing it up. On The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. In his Playboy interview. In People magazine. Every platform he had, he mentioned Frank Delaney. There's a man in Los Angeles named Frank Delaney who served 2 tours in Vietnam. He works nights cleaning floors in a hospital. And nobody thanks him. Nobody sees him. That needs to change. Frank Delaney didn't know any of this was happening. He worked his night shifts. Mopped the floors. wore the flag pin on his jacket every single day. And sometimes, when people asked about it, and people did start asking, he would tell them what John Wayne had told him to say. "My name is Frank Delaney. I served my country in Vietnam." 3 months after their meeting, in June 1978, Frank was working his usual shift when a nurse he'd never spoken to before stopped him in the hallway. "Are you Frank Delaney? The one John Wayne talks about?" Frank looked confused. What?" "John Wayne. The actor. He was on Carson last week. He told a story about meeting a Vietnam veteran named Frank Delaney in this hospital." "Is that you?" Frank's hands tightened on his mop handle. He talked about me? He's been talking about you for months. Said you're a hero. Said people need to remember men like you." Frank finished his shift in a daze. Went home to his small apartment. Sat on his bed still wearing his jacket, the flag pin catching the early morning light through his window. John Wayne had kept his promise. Away from the cameras, Wayne made a choice no one expected. August 1978. Wayne was back at UCLA Medical Center. The treatments weren't working anymore. Everyone knew it. He'd lost weight. The pain was constant now. His doctors were talking about palliative care. He'd asked to see Frank Delaney. The hospital administrator was confused. "The janitor? Mr. Wayne, if you need something. I need to see Frank Delaney. Find him. Tell him John Wayne wants to talk." They found Frank on his dinner break, eating a sandwich in the basement cafeteria. Told him John Wayne was asking for him. Frank thought it was a joke at first. Then he saw their faces. They brought him to a private room on the oncology floor. Wayne was sitting in a chair by the window, wearing a robe, oxygen tube in his nose. He looked smaller than Frank remembered. Frielier. But when he saw Frank, he smiled. There he is. The famous Frank Delaney. Frank didn't know what to say. "Mr. Wayne, I heard what you've been saying. About me. I don't know why. Because I said I would." Wayne gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit down, Frank." Frank sat. Wayne was quiet for a moment, looking out the window at the Los Angeles skyline. Then, "I got something to ask you. And I need you to think about it before you answer." "Okay. When I die." "And it's coming soon, we both know that. There's going to be a service. Public memorial. Big production. Hollywood does death the way Hollywood does everything. Big." He looked at Frank. "I want you there. Front row. Wearing that flag pin. And I want you to stand up when they ask if anyone wants to speak, and I want you to say your name. Say you served. Say that I saw you. Can you do that?" Frank's throat closed up. "Mr. Wayne, I'm nobody. I shouldn't be." "You're exactly who should be there," Wayne interrupted. "All those actors and directors and studio heads, they're going to talk about the movies I made. The characters I played. Fine. But I want someone there to remind them that the men I played were real. And you're one of them. I don't know if I can." Wayne reached out, the oxygen tube shifting with the movement, and gripped Frank's forearm. The same grip from 6 months ago in the corridor. Still firm. Still certain. Frank Delaney served 2 tours in Vietnam. He came home and nobody thanked him. And then one day in a hospital corridor somebody did. That's not nothing. That's not nobody. You hear me? Frank nodded, unable to speak. "Promise me." "I promise." Wayne let go. Leaned back in his chair, suddenly looking exhausted. "Good. Now get out of here. You got floors to mop." It was the last time they spoke. But what followed would stay with everyone who witnessed it, forever. John Wayne died on June 11, 1979. The memorial service was held at the Pacific View Memorial Park. Thousands attended. Presidents. Directors. Actors. The entire machinery of Hollywood grief. And in the front row, Wearing a faded field jacket and a small American flag pin, sat Frank Delaney. When they opened the floor for remembrances, Frank stood up. His hands shook. His voice cracked. But he said what he'd promised to say. "My name is Frank Delaney. I served 2 tours in Vietnam with the United States Marine Corps. And one day in a hospital corridor, John Wayne saw me. He didn't have to. But he did. And he kept his promise." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. After the service, 3 veterans approached Frank. Then 7. Then 20. Men wearing worn jackets. Carrying evidence nobody else saw. They thanked him. For speaking. For being visible. For reminding everyone they existed. Frank Delaney worked at UCLA Medical Center for another 15 years. He wore that flag pin every single day until he died in 1994. It's buried with him. On his headstone, beneath his name and dates, are 2 lines. Vietnam veteran. Seen by John Wayne. That's all it says. That's all it needed to say.